Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So after this process over the last days, weeks and months, how confident are you that a sex offender isn't about to be appointed to the US Supreme Court?
I'm very confident that Brett Kavanaugh is not a sex offender. At this point, you know, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago when the allegations first began to surface, I wouldn't have had the same level of confidence at all. But what we have seen over the last many days of fact-finding is that the allegations not only aren't corroborated by any contemporaneous witnesses, that the story of the principal accuser in this case, Christine Blasey Ford, has had multiple contradictions in it. The witnesses that she has put forward to say that they were present at the party where the sexual assault allegedly occurred have not corroborated her story. In fact, one of her friends has said she doesn't even really know Brett Kavanaugh. And then the other people who have come forward, for example, this wild claim of gang rape and multiple gang rapes, that has fallen apart completely. Another claim from somebody who claimed that Brett Kavanaugh committed an act of indecent exposure in college. That claim has zero corroboration. Each of these claims have gotten weaker as the days have gone by, not stronger. And so that's why I'm more confident that if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago about the status of the claims against Brett Kavanaugh, and because I'm more confident about that, I'm also more confident he'll likely be, not certainly, but likely be confirmed for the court.
Now, Democrats have been quite critical of the FBI investigation, ignoring accusations of Kavanaugh potentially perjuring himself. Do you think lying under oath about even little stuff like drinking should be disqualified? And if so, why not investigate it?
Well, I do think that lying under oath, even about little things, can be disqualifying and should be disqualifying. I think the problem that you have here is that the allegations of lying under oath are far outstripping the evidence, and you just have to compare what Kavanaugh actually said with the claims against him to see that the vast majority of the claims that he's lied under oath are fabricated political talking points. The claims that are more serious, involving, for example, his categorical assertions of the meaning of 36-year-old slang terms, are almost impossible to adjudicate. Already we're seeing all over the internet, there are people coming forward and saying, this term definitely meant what he said, and then other people are saying, no, it definitely did not mean what he said. And so I have a feeling when it comes to these slang terms and some of the terms from his yearbook, this is just a fight that we're going to have now and forever. And I don't see that there's any conceivable way for the FBI to determine what a slang term meant 36 years ago when people are coming forward with interpretations that are all over the place.
It's fair to say, David, that you haven't been a big Trump fan, but how well do you think the president has handled this process? And what do you think of his change in tone towards Dr. Ford this week?
Yeah, to say that I'm haven't been a fan of Trump is an understatement. I would say this. Through most of the process, he has been remarkably restrained by his standards, However, a couple of days ago at a rally, he mounted a direct attack against Christine Blasey Ford that went way over the line, way over the line. It's completely fair to point out that her allegations are not corroborated by the evidence. That's just a fact. There's no corroboration of her allegations. But to do it in such a mocking tone and do it in such a way that so obviously mocked her, A, was classic Trump, B, did not help Brett Kavanaugh, and C, so far at least, hasn't happened since, perhaps because he may understand that it didn't work well for him. He knows how important these judicial nomination fights are to his base. And if he messes up a judicial nomination fight, if he screws this up, that is the one line that an awful lot of his supporters will not tolerate him crossing. He's supposed to do this correctly.
David, Republicans have expressed concerns about the excessive politicisation of this process, but Democrats would probably say that this didn't happen for Gorsuch. And if you compare Kavanaugh to some of his fellow finalists, like, say, Kethledge, he was confirmed to appeals court on a voice vote. So was Hardeman, whereas Kavanaugh only got through after a 3-year wait with 57 votes because he had a super partisan background. So how would you respond to suggestions that he was just too partisan a pick for the Supreme Court?
Well, you know, there was a school of thought when he was selected that he was going to actually be the safest nominee. And an awful lot of people thought that because he is such a long-standing establishment Republican attorney, an establishment Republican judge, that he was the kind of judge that a President Jeb Bush would have picked, a President Marco Rubio would have picked had they won the Republican nomination. So it was far from obvious going into this that he was going to be any more difficult to confirm than anyone else, and perhaps less difficult to confirm. I think what people missed is that different from Gorsuch. Gorsuch was replacing Scalia, a conservative for a conservative. This is the swing vote on the court that is being put on the court now. The stakes are very much higher, and we are now more than a year, almost 2 years into a Trump presidency where the polarization is increasing literally month by month. So much higher stakes, much greater polarization. I'm not at all surprised at how vicious this became. I am surprised by some of the lengths that some people went in this nomination fight, but I'm not surprised that it was vicious. And I think anyone who thinks that you could just pull this nomination, put somebody else up front, and it be a functional process is just deluding themselves.
Now, finally, David, we're just over a month out now from the midterms. How do you think this will all play out politically?
Well, as of right now, I mean, this is something that has played out, at least in the very short term, very favorable for the GOP. There was a real chance before this controversy arose that the GOP could lose the Senate and the House, which would have been a disastrous outcome for the Republican Party. Right now, if you held the elections today, there is a much greater chance that the Republicans could actually gain seats in the Senate and maybe possibly hold the House, which is not something Democrats were counting on. As I said, there are few things that mobilize all Republicans more than a judicial fight. And this is something that never Trumpers and always Trumpers and sometimes Trumpers all agree on. They all agree on putting originalist justices on the Supreme Court. And so this unites the whole larger right. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is a very interesting question, as fast as the news cycle moves, if this thing resolves itself by the end of this weekend, that's weeks before the election. How many crazy news cycles will we have in this country by that time? What will be the issue right front of mind in voters as they go to the polls in November by that time? And we just don't know.
David French, thank you very much for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me. I'm much appreciated.